Welcome to Stay Grounded with your host, me, Raj Jana. I'm the founder of Java Press Coffee Company, and my life changed after my mentor died with 3 months left until retirement. That experience inspired me to start a personal journey to discover how we can all live a purpose-driven and meaningful life starting today. I interview everyone from best-selling authors and business moguls to extreme athletes and monks to discuss happiness, success, and fulfillment, to uncover powerful takeaways that empower you to stay grounded and make passionate living a reality. To access post-podcast discussions, insights, and further resources, visit rajjana.com/stay grounded. So thanks for joining me today. Now, let's get to grinding. What is up, everybody, and welcome to episode 65 of Stay Grounded. Hope you guys are having a great start to your week, or whenever you're choosing to listen in. I am extremely excited to be introducing this week's guest, Mrs. Farnoosh Torabi. So Farnoosh is one of America's leading finance experts, and over the years, she's helped thousands of people master their money and use their wealth to live extraordinary lives. And she's had a career in the space that spanned everything from best-selling books to a primetime series on CNN to regular columns in the O and the Oprah magazine around finance. She also has an award-winning podcast called So Money, which has attracted millions of listeners alongside world-renowned guests such as Tony Robbins and Robert Kiyosaki, and me. I was on her show earlier, so go check it out. I mean, she has such a wealth of knowledge around money and the mindsets and the strategies you need to take control of it so you feel empowered to use it to create a life you love. You know, I think money can be such an awkward conversation, or it's an awkward topic of conversation, but it was so easy talking about it with Farnoosh just because we weren't just talking about the physical aspect of money. We were talking about the relationships with money and where they come from, how money can be used to keep us grounded, and where our money blocks come from, really, like our own relationships and the way we think about money, like where does that come from? And usually it comes from our childhood. And so going down memory lane to really discover that context was something we talked a lot about on this episode. We discovered the value of creating a financial fortress and the specific things you can do to change your mindset around money so you can feel more empowered. I mean, I loved this episode so much. We don't bring on a lot of money experts in general, but I think our relationship with money is a direct correlation to our relationship with everything else. And I think that's the same. Our relationship with our relationships is almost like a mirror for our relationships with ourselves, for our relationships with the other things in our life. So although it is an awkward conversation, I love going down the rabbit hole because by seeing the parallels between money and my relationship with it, I was able to find sort of connections between my relationship with my career, my relationship with my relationships, and find those parallels. I don't think money buys happiness, but it does buy choice. And it is a resource that creates opportunities and gives you more autonomy and control over your life. So I do think it's a topic worth your time and attention, and at least examining where our relationships come from with it, because by understanding the root of why we look at money the way we look at it, we can now create an abundance of energy, light, love that allows us to move forward and create the lives we do love and attract money in our life the way we want to. And so I loved this episode, and it was a start point of an entirely new mindset for me and a set of experiences around this powerful resource that I'm excited to put into play. And I'm excited to hear how you guys love it too. So make sure to get in touch with me after the episode. Let me know what you like and didn't like. Subscribe to us on iTunes. Go ahead and join us on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen. Just come on in and join. And I'm excited. I'm really, really, really excited for this episode. It was a refreshing conversation with a new friend, and I'm excited to hear y'all's takeaways. So without further ado, please enjoy the wonderful Mrs. Farnoosh Torabi. Yo, yo, yo! Welcome back to another episode of Stay Grounded. How are you, Farnoosh?
I'm doing well. We are recording on Election Day. So I just got back from the polls, very long lines here in Brooklyn at my voting precinct. Is that what they call them? Voting sounds like...
I think so. I'm not sure.
Sounds like a bad place, but it's the voting mecca here. And I waited in line probably 45 minutes, but worth it, doing my civic duty.
Yeah, I was just, we were talking about this earlier, but I budgeted an hour and a half for my own personal voting today. And I hope that that's enough time because I do recognize these lines can get...
Should be. You might fill it up because you'll run into people start conversations. I
Oh,
noticed
yeah.
so many people doing that. It was sort of like became a social experience and catching up. And like, it's like a good mood. It's a good vibe.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now you just got me excited. So this is going to be like a perfect primer for me to go out there. Anyway, super grateful to have you here. I was on your show and I remember us chatting, and I remember you being such a fun person to talk to that I couldn't wait to have you here. So
Thank you. Likewise.
I'm excited to dive in. So I already introed you to the audience, so they all know your deepest, darkest secrets. So I'm going to start with a question that I personally have just after reading your story and after sort of learning more about you as a person. So you came from an immigrant background. You came to the United States a long time ago.
Well, I was
And
born here. Fact
your
check.
parents came here.
My parents came here. Yeah.
Sorry, I fact checked myself on that. Yes. Yes, your parents came here a long time ago. And you were raised in an immigrant household, which had different viewpoints around money. So I want to start there because I think that there's a lot of lessons in general around the journey. How did your personal relationship with your parents growing up change the way you experienced gratitude and or even just your ideas around money through the lens of gratitude, abundance, or even a lack of? What was your relationship with money growing up in that household?
There were many aspects to the relationship. It was multifaceted. I think on the plus side, I think that I was raised to have language around money. We talked about money a lot. I knew that there was nothing to be afraid of. I experienced watching my parents talk about money in front of me, the good and the bad. And then I think my relationship with money was very real. It was very raw. They really brought me into conversations around why we couldn't afford things, that, dad's company is experiencing layoffs, and what is that ultimately going to mean for us if he gets laid off. And so I think my peers, my friends may not have been witness to some of those kinds of conversations, because those are the sort of things that you don't tell kids because you don't want them to maybe get scared, or you feel like they just won't be able to get it and it's going to create anxiety. But my parents, I think, raised me as an equal to them. And that meant introducing me and sharing the financial realities that they faced. But also, I would say it was a proud relationship with money. My parents, as a lot of immigrants, came here with very little but had a lot of hopes and dreams, and they worked really hard. And the part of the success that they experienced was monetary success. And so whether it was my dad got a raise and we were able to move into a bigger home and a better neighborhood, that was a real source of pride for us. And I got to see the connection between working hard, making the money, and changing your life. And that was really powerful. But on the maybe not so great side of my relationship with money, I think I also did witness my parents fight about money. I witnessed having less than others and feeling sort of ashamed sometimes because we weren't as well off as some of the other folks in the community or at school. Yeah. And that was reflected in little things like the kinds of lunch you brought to school, or the kind of cars that your parents drove you up to school. Did you take the bus? Did you have your own car? And so these sort of economic symbols and status symbols that we create for ourselves. I experienced that. And, I think that it was just part of the process, and I've now, as an adult, I have a very well-rounded, I think, relationship with money and a lot of context for and knowing why I feel the way I do about money and the way I spend the way I do and the way I save the way I do. It's not a coincidence. It is very much because of the way I was raised.
When did you start getting the awareness around some of the lessons that you learned growing up and how that pertained to the ways that you experience, whether it's economic prosperity or even just hardships through money? Because you said something really interesting around there was because I totally empathize and totally recognize the idea of pride. When you make a huge purchase because you worked really hard and you have pride, that is the feeling that money delivers. But I also see the other side that you experienced. So when did you start pinpointing these moments?
I'm still pinpointing them. I would say it's a recent development in my life. It's a recent self-reflection, not super recent. I'd say in the last 5 years since I've really started to increase my earnings, accumulate assets, get married, have children. Like life is really happening for me right now. And with that comes a lot of reflection and a lot of trying to work through things like emotionally, but also tactfully and tangibly maneuvering, as a mother, as a breadwinner, as a business owner, as, a daughter to aging parents. I feel like money conversations and reflections about like my financial life are really coming at me. And as a result of my work too, talking to people about money, I feel like, on my podcast, I've had the opportunity to hear from so many people about their financial backgrounds, the way that they think about money, their philosophies around money. And it's forced me to sort of find those truths in my life. And I'm really grateful for that. But I'm still learning. I just the other month or so my last book is called When She Makes More, and very personal book. It's about female breadwinners, but like how to really master the relationship that you're in. And when the book first came out in 2014, I would share that, I'm in a marriage, I'm the breadwinner, and guys, it was just an accident. Like I didn't look for this, I just married for love and whoops, I'm the breadwinner. And no, I realized like 4 years later, I was at an event and someone said, what's something that you've learned about yourself since writing the book?
Yeah.
And I knew that question was going to come at me. So I spent a little bit of time before the event thinking about it. And I realized that I've been lying to a lot of people and myself, not purposely, but I think I was not brave enough to really call my own actions out. And I think for me, the reality is that I am who I am in my financial life as the breadwinner, as somebody who really appreciates and wants to hold on to this role as breadwinner, because it really is who I am. It's who I want to be. It's the role that I play where I feel safest in my life. Yeah. Because all growing up, I knew, I did realize early on that money equals opportunity, power, control, autonomy, all of those things. Maybe it doesn't buy happiness. Well, I would argue that it does. But it does buy you the opportunities that you want to feel like your best self, right? Like the experiences that you want, the agency that you need to leave a bad situation. A lot of times the lack of money holds us back from being able to speak up for ourselves because, leave bad situations, i.e. bad jobs, bad marriages, bad relationships. And so very early on, I made that connection. And I think that has now led me to a place in my life where I'm the breadwinner. I love the role. I cherish the role. It feels very much me. I see other relationships out there where she makes nothing or makes less, and I don't ever want that for me. I'm not saying that's wrong, but that is not who I am. I would feel completely out of character, and I'd feel like I'm not living the life I was supposed to live. I guess the revelation or the truth that I discovered only years after writing a book about what female breadwinner is that it's not a coincidence who you end up being in your financial life, that there is a lot of context for it. There were patterns. Maybe you just didn't see them, but let's see them, because until you recognize that, you can't really enhance or change the life that you have.
Yeah, brilliantly said, by the way. On that note, all the security that money buys, the feelings, the freedom, the power, when you don't have money, there's a certain air of helplessness. Sometimes maybe it's a lack of ownership, or maybe it's tougher to see what you need to see. So how would you, in that state where you don't have the resources, the money to think clearly, to really sort of look back and find those problems, when you don't have the money, how do you actually go back and get reflective or curious about why you don't have it, when that's a really painful thought to really have in the first place?
Well, I think that this is where you really need to lean into philosophy, and really hold on to hope, but also a belief, a very strong belief in yourself. You must have an unwavering belief in your ability to go out there and do what you want to do and do it well. And it may not be something that happens for you this year. It may be something that is 10 years from now, but you have to make a commitment. Like, I'm starting to make the change. And I think it also helps to tap into other people's stories. I built my path. I engineered my life from a place of having less than I have today. Now, I wasn't in destitute. I wasn't poor necessarily, but I had less than, a lot less than. And if you had told me, 10 years ago that I would be where I am today, I would have said, how am I going to get there? How is that even possible? So I think we all have this innate kind of self-doubt. But what helped me see the path was seeing others do it, those who were ahead of me doing it, and remembering that there's really nothing that differentiates us. It's like we all come from very different backgrounds. We all have hardships. We all have adversity of all different scale and size, and everyone's arguably, challenged in their own ways. But ultimately, you just have to believe that you can get there and get the solutions and the steps from other people who've been there and done that. And I know it sounds cliche, but don't think about the money. Think about what will make you happy, what will bring you fulfillment. I'm not going to say that the money's just going to show up, but it's better. It's I think, especially for people who don't like to think about money a lot, don't think about the money. Don't think about the money. Think about what it is that actually will drive you to keep working, to stay consistent, to stick it out when it's really hard and people are telling you can't make it, because you need to have the grit and also the passion. I learned that recently too. You can't just have the passion, you have to have the grit. But what helps you have grit is first identifying the thing that is actually going to make you so excited and happy that you're doing it. And that's going to be different for everybody. And sometimes you're not going to land on that right away. You have to do some of the dirty work, or to make the mistakes, or do stuff that you're like, oh, I don't actually like doing this. What a waste of time. No, actually it was part of the plan, because you have to do the things you don't like to know what it is you like. You have to kiss a lot of frogs before you land your prince. That's a terrible metaphor, but it is the first thing that popped in my head. But to your question, I think that it's hard. I'm not going to say like, oh, just follow your passion, work hard, and find your people to support you. But that's got to be part of it. Those are essentials. Yeah, that's like very basic.
Foundational pieces.
It's very foundational. You have to have a strategy, and you have to be willing to retool that strategy on the go, on your feet. And I think that you have to be, I read a quote the other day on Instagram, because that's where you get all your quotes now. And it was like, I'm devoted to the outcome, but not devoted to how I get there. Like I know what I want. It doesn't have to happen in a certain way for me, but I know what my goal is. Yep. And I think that's important, because it's, there are certain things you just cannot control, but no one can change the things that you want and the way that
they make you feel.
The way they make you feel. Right.
Yeah. And I have a curious question. What about money is it that makes us feel that sense of like accomplishment? To me, like money can, but so can raising a beautiful family. So can getting in the best shape of your life. Like, what about money as just an energy source, or whatever you want to call it, that source of like whatever that is, money as a concept? Why do you think it makes us feel the way it makes us feel?
Why does it make us feel accomplished? Why is it such a status symbol? Why is it something that we so want to achieve and accumulate? Well, money is power. People want power. People also want the family and they want happiness, but power is really attractive to a lot of people, particularly men and women, but different kinds of power. And I think that is something that over history, over time, we've seen that play out. Is true. Money does lead to you accumulating power in the business world, in the political world, in your community, because it is a resource. It is an unmatched resource. With money, you can create opportunities, you can hire people, you can build lives, you can build cities and towns and businesses and rules of law. And I think, that's something that isn't new to us. It's been ingrained in us since the beginning of money, which goes back to, I don't know when, long time. Before money, there was bartering and, there was other sources of exchange, but it's a real source of pride because with money comes, you can surround yourself with the things and the people and the sort of like it's a status symbol, right? I'm not saying it's right or it's worth aspiring to, but I'm just saying that's kind of just our culture.
Yeah. I remember a friend of mine shared a joke about the investment banker going to Mexico on vacation, seeing a local fisherman fish. And he was like, "Oh my God, you're so good at fishing. What if you did this and you can make 10 times more?" And then the fisherman was like, "All right, what would I do with that?" And then the guy's like, "Oh, then you take that and start a business. And then you could run and make all this money. And then what would I do with that?" And then, "Oh, you could do more. You could scale even more. What would I do with that?" And then the guy eventually got to the answer, which is, "Oh, you'd retire and just fish." And the fisherman was sitting there. He's like, "I'm already there."
Story.
So how do you, I guess, like when you think about that, right? This pursuit of power, this pursuit of money, how does that combine with the importance of presence?
It's such a good question. I wish I had a really good answer for it. I think you just have to really be clear on how money is meant to serve you. What do you want money to do for you in your life? Or rather, what do you want to do with this money to bring you the fulfillment? What does fulfillment mean to you? Because it can feel like a rat race. You can always feel like you're not measuring up. There's always going to be someone with more money. There's always going to be somebody who's going to suggest a new idea, a new way to level up, a new way to maybe become more successful. And so it's hard, but I think you need to be really clear and very strict about what it is that actually fulfills you. And there's so many things that have nothing to do with money, right? It's about your community, your involvement, your family, your experiences, day to day, month to month, year over year, that certainly money can make things easier and make things a little bit more accessible. But yeah, to this fisherman's story point, it can feel like very circuitous, like you're just this hamster on a wheel and very pointless. And at a certain point in your life, the next best commodity after money, or next best resource rather, is time, right? I think the older you get, I found that too. Like for me, like what's as important making money is having time to appreciate the wealth, right? To enjoy the wealth. Like saying no to opportunities that could otherwise make me money because I just know the toll and tax it's going to take on my time, my enjoyment, my time with my family. Those are the measurements I make now to figure out whether I want to pursue a money-making thing. I will make less in a year because I've been able to buy back my time in return.
How does that make you feel?
It's the best. It is true wealth when you can say no to an opportunity because it doesn't either just sit right with you or you know that it's going to compromise other things that you value. That's really the math I think that people need to make. And I know not everybody has the luxury to do that. Sometimes you just got to in my 20s, I said yes to everything. I wanted to, not everything, but I wanted to make an honest day's work, but I was very busy and I didn't sleep and I sacrificed a lot to get ahead and accumulate. But I did it also knowing that this was not forever, right? That I wanted to do it so that I could arrive at a place of privilege to say no to things that I just didn't want to do. I want to make money. I don't want to need to make money. I want to make money. I posted something the other day, I got to rearrange a work meeting so that I could pick up my son from the bus stop on the first day of school. It's a big kind of milestone for us as a family, as a young family, and he's only 4, and it felt for me like such a win, and I felt so proud that I could do that for us. Wealth doesn't have to be a mansion. It can just be moving your schedule around without financial consequence to do something that you value a lot more.
How do you infuse that level of gratitude or even just priority into your life when you don't have a lot?
I kept trying to remind myself growing up, I would say when I started working and really doing the grind and the hustle of New York, like to slow it down, like life is happening around you, slow down, recognize it. The people that you surround yourself with are also very important in making sure that your values are grounded, that I'm not saying create an echo chamber for yourself, but hanging out with people who are supportive and I think also are in the same boat financially. You don't want to be, if you are struggling, surround yourself with other people who can empathize with that at the very least, right? But at the same time will motivate you to keep going and to build. It's your social surroundings are very influential. Even the things that you consume online and on television and in the news and on social media, a lot of that can also subliminally impact our feelings about, are we going to get through what we need to get through? And are we going to actually, is life going to get better? Like the world can be a scary place, but not if you're focused on the right things.
Why are you so passionate about helping people navigate their financial futures?
I see how much people light up when they know that they're going to make more this year, or they found ways to save, or that they can afford the things they didn't think they could afford. I feel like money, it's not the most important thing, but man, when you have more of it, it can change lives. It can really change your life for the better. And for some, it means being able to give back more. It means to be able to finally start that family or build that business. And that, it's not the only thing that's going to get them there, but man, it's a lot easier when you have the money. And it also, money is a huge source of stress, not the lack of money, or even when you have it and you're not really sure if you're managing it right. It's a huge source of stress. And I think that for me to be able to step in and in some cases just reassure them of what they're doing is such a gift, and they feel like a weight has been lifted. And I think like it's, for me, it's the best work, and it's the work that I feel the best, I'm best suited to do. I couldn't help people with their nutrition plans or like remodeling their house. I can give you some suggestions, but for me, it just feels like money, because again, of my upbringing and like the language that I was given and the fluency that I have with it, it's for me, it feels very comfortable doing what I do. It feels very natural to me. So I'm leaning into that.
Yeah, you're trusting the opportunities, the voice, and the story, the upbringing, and it's all come beautifully together into the life you've created, which I think is phenomenal. With that, you said something really interesting around the idea of essentially building a mindset, which is what you just really covered, which is like changing your mindset. If you don't have a lot, changing your mindset. How much of essentially changing your life is around mindset, and how much of it is habit, and then how much of it is environment?
I think it's a split, a triple split. It's 30% mind, 30% habit, 30% environment, or 33%. You can't do it all with just the power of thinking, and it can't just be your environment. It can't just be the strategy. I think that you have to be conscious of all of that.
Yeah.
That's the short answer.
It's a short answer. Short answer is keep it simple. Keep it simple. What I like about the simple process of what you just explained is that it's not as daunting to me. And I thought it was really interesting. A year ago, I was working full time and building my business, and I was stressed. Now I'm doing exactly what I wanted to be doing a year later, and I'm still stressed. And it's amazing how money can create this story, this rat race in your own mind. How do you break that cycle to where you're always, even if you have all the answers, even like for some reason, I just feel like money, to me at least, I have to be stressed about it. Like, it's like I have to think about it, or I have to, like, at least in my mind, there's a part of me that's like, how do I have more? Or what's going to happen if this happens? So like, how would I challenge personally? Just how do I challenge my own relationship with that?
I'll tell you how I do it, because I think it's natural, first of all, to feel that way, because money can feel like a scarce resource, right? And if you're not mindful of it, some people can also be a little like superstitious about it. Like, it'll be taken away from me. And if I don't, it's bad luck to do this because it'll get, then I'll lose it. So there's a lot of like fear and scarcity mindset around money. And that is like, I feel that I felt that in my life. I think what helps to combat that is to create almost like a fortress, a financial fortress around these evil thoughts, and that's a metaphor for a savings account. Like, think about worst case scenario, like you had to shutter your business for a year. Yeah. I mean, it's not going to take you a year to rebuild, but like, let's say things are sometimes out of our control. There's a recession. There is who knows what, a huge vendor goes out of business, and that creates a ricochet into your business. And like, I've seen it happen. People go bankrupt because they were promised all these orders, and then the recession happened, and they got and so they didn't have cash flow, and the rest is history. So what is like your biggest fear, and what is the monetary amount of money that you think you need to be able to work through that struggle without stress, without having to work fast, because time is money. So what are your living expenses? What's your overhead? And I mean, you're not going to live the life that you did, but like at the very basic minimal level, what's your health insurance? Because you can't go without health insurance. What is your rent? What is your food bill? What is your gas bill? And just putting that aside times 12, times 6 months to 12 months, and just putting that away. Because I mean, I have as much anxiety as the next person around money. I could have as much anxiety as the next person, but what helps me is knowing that I have money set aside for the apocalypse. Okay. But that's not, hopefully, like, that's just like 1 in a bazillion chance. But more realistically, it could be like a bad month or an unexpected health bill that I wasn't expecting to pay. Or, there are millions of things that life happens and you have to afford it. So that helps. And, it's also about recognizing that maybe I have a scarcity mindset around money. And why is that?
Yeah.
Looking at your hit, like James Altucher is a friend of mine, and he's a prolific writer, podcaster, entrepreneur, and he's like has battled with his own demons, and I remember he told me something about, his daughter at the time was in high school and was a worrywart, and she was always worried and had a lot of anxiety and over stuff that, in hindsight, as her dad was like, this is nothing to worry about. But it's hard to communicate that to someone who's like a teen.
A child, yeah.
And so the exercise that he would do with her, which I highly recommend for anybody of any age, of any stage, is the moment you're having anxiety again over your money, stop and look at the last year. Okay. And remember the last time you had that fear or that anxiety or whatever. And then what happened? What happened? You made more money, your bills got paid, you figured it out, things resolved. So we can't tell the future, but we can see the past. So look at your history, look at your past. When things went south or when you had a fear of things going south, what then happened?
Okay. I have a question on that though. Let's say 2008 financial market crashes. It's not something that in my young career, I haven't been through in 2008, I was still in high school, so I didn't have to deal with the crash. But let's say now something like that happens again, and I haven't been through it. So I don't know what that feels like to go through it and to think that I'll be okay. How do I manage my own emotional health and my own relationship with anxiety in a situation where I don't know how I'm going to essentially, I don't know what's going to happen?
Well, there are a few things you need to come to terms with and come to grips with in times like that. One is that you're not going to be able to control everything. So stop worrying about the things that are out of your control. You can't control the stock market. You can't control what government's going to decide to do. I mean, you can vote and that's great, but those, your votes take time to make an impact. So in the moment, you can't control other people's actions, but what you can control is your ability to stay level-headed. I would do a lot of writing. I would do a lot of connecting with other people. You're not alone. I got laid off in 2009. And guess what? So did my mom. So did a lot of my coworkers. It was like the laid off club of the February to March was are you working? How do you still have a job? So it's like finding levity in the sort of sadness and despair, because if you don't laugh, you're going to cry. But also, Raj, I think you have to give yourself permission to swim in those emotions. Like, I'm not saying don't feel sad, don't ignore your anxiety. No, like really get in tune to it, get close to it, and hopefully it will give you some peace. I definitely think that I definitely, was sad for a while when I lost my job and I wasn't sure when I was going to make money again. And I cried and I was sad and but I started to remember and I started to write down all of the things that I was good at and that I could do. And I mean, I'm a pretty like roll up your sleeves, do whatever you got to do kind of person. And I was not going to be the kind of person who would be insistent on getting her old job back. When times are tough, you do what you've got to do. For me, if it meant like going and being a house cleaner or babysitting or doing something that was not of my academic rank, or my professional rank, I don't care. It's an honest day's work. I have to make money and I'm going to do it. I'll go work at the Gap. I don't care. I'll fold sweaters if those jobs even existed, So it's sort of like you have to let your ego out the door.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that, by the way. I'm sure I needed to hear that. And I'm sure a few other people might have.
I hope we never get to that low point again in our lifetime. But, a recession happens every 5 to 7 years, like a correction of some big size or, a real pullback. So it's just also remember it's part of the process. Just fasten your seatbelt. Hold on. You did it once, you'll do it again.
I love that. I love the fasten your seatbelt and hold on. What's interesting, I know we've talked a lot about money and that's not what I initially planned, but I love that because it kind of just organically happened. But what I've realized in this conversation is that the same emotions I feel around money are like, I can find parallels.
Yeah.
Like my same emotions like that come from either a fear of commitment in certain parts of my life or a fear of change in other parts of my life or a fear of success or, I mean, it all kind of like, now there's like, when you think about the fear of money, it's like the same fear just showing up in every single bucket. It almost just puts on a different mask so you can't recognize it. How does that land with you? And have you seen the same fears in your life with money show up in other parts of your life? And has that helped or hurt?
Like on a very simple level, we always say there's like 2 ways you can look at the world. The world is abundant or the world is scarce.
Yeah.
And if you're of the scarcity mindset or of the abundance mindset, I think that will show up in a lot of ways, in the way that you think about money, the way you think about your self-worth, the way you think about your relationships with people, a lot of ways. Yeah. And I was raised with a lot of fear personally. My mother was, as an immigrant, as a young mom, she was only 19 when she had me, living in like a very foreign country to her, not speaking the language, raising a daughter, in a very blue collar, sort of like crimey neighborhood of Worcester, Massachusetts at the time, where also it was the 80s. So it was like the era of kidnappings, at least, that's what the news was obsessed with. And like kids' faces on milk cartons. She was like, where are we? This is supposed to be better than my country? I'm so confused. So she raised me with through the lens of fear. But I think that has shown up in the way sometimes when I examine life, relationships, my money, I do feel like I have a heightened level of distrust in a lot of things. Like I think it's going to turn into a memoir, frankly, because I don't think that it's like, I think it's a really big thing. Like I think it was such a huge force in my life, the way that I looked at everything. I was always afraid. I was always second guessing. So then that plays into second guessing your ability to make money. That plays into second guessing your ability to manage your relationship with people and your loved ones. And, it's so all this to say, like, you're not crazy.
Yeah.
We all go through it, and it's rooted very much in our upbringing. So note to parents, like, don't screw up your kids because that is going to show up.
Once you realize it shows up, you start to kind of see it, right? It's like, it just bubbles up. You're like, oh my God, that explained everything.
Yeah.
How do you realize it for the first time?
You just have to be conscious of it. I mean, it's not rocket science, but you got to go down memory lane and start to really get honest with the experiences that you experienced.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes your memory morphs, right? Like you think that your childhood was a certain way, but then you have these recurring dreams and you don't know why. Like, or you have this like sort of delicate relationship with one of your relatives. Maybe it's your mom, maybe it's a sibling, and you can't put your finger on it. But then you start thinking about your relationship with them growing up as a kid and what that was like. And so it takes self-reflection, takes a lot of honesty, um, you know, recognizing your role too in some of the memories and experiences that you had, and then seeing how they're showing up in your adult life. You don't know until you start to remember what life was like for you. It's easy too to kind of shove those memories under the rug. Like I don't want to remember my grades 5 through 9. That was a terrible, like puberty, like explosive years. Like I don't need to go back down memory lane, but maybe during those years, it was very transformative in terms of like what you learned from your parents, or maybe you had a big move during those years. We moved a lot between grades 5 and 9, as it turns out. And so those were like huge turning points for me in my life. And the things that I came to learn and experience, I'm realizing now how much of an impact they had on me.
Honesty is like one of the hardest things.
And like aging helps, seriously, it does. Like it gives you a lot of perspective. I think one of the best parts of getting older for me has been realizing what is worth stressing over and what is not. And there's a lot more in the what's not worth stressing out category.
How do I accelerate some of those realizations?
I think it's trusting your elder peers, and really taking their advice to heart. I remember starting to do one practice that I started in my late 20s, because working in news is very stressful. A lot of pressure, a lot of deadlines, a lot of terrible personalities. And it's very easy to like lose your sense of grounding. And, every day is vomit inducing. Like you just don't know like who's going to blow up at you or what's going to happen with your schedule. So it was extremely stressful for me between the ages of like 22 and 30. And a lot of it had to do with a lot of terrible people I was working with, a lot of demanding, like uncompromising, like rude people, and not a lot, but enough where it was getting to my head and I was having a hard time doing my work. So this is a little unrelated, but I remember just like realizing that I can't control other people's actions, but I can control my reaction to people, right? So I just started to care less about the BS that was happening around me. And I also started not to take it personally. Like I was like, this person's blowing up at me, but it's not about me. They had a really crappy day and maybe like they're taking it out on me, but it's because it's rooted in other things. It's like displaced anger. So I'm going to like give them the benefit of the doubt and I'm not going to like hold this against them. I'm not going to, necessarily respect this person, but I'm going to not take it so personally. And I think, it was my father who kind of who's older and has been there and done that. And he was like, you need to just start managing yourself more, better. You got to manage your emotions. You got to stop letting all these people bother you, and so whether it's people who are bothering you or issues or things that you're nervous about, the future, like take those voices out of your head and at least realize that like you're just one person. It's not about you. Life will go on. Do the good work, put your head down or raise your head up, whatever you want to do, but don't let these people get in your way. Don't let these thoughts cloud your judgment.
I love that you just said these people and then you went to these thoughts, because it's almost like the thoughts are, in my mind at least, I think of thoughts as people, like I'm fighting against them. So it's super helpful for me to just think about, these thoughts. And I love the idea of, I've always believed in taking massive ownership. The second you begin to just take massive ownership, you give yourself the tools to just shift, because now it's never reactive. You're always proactive. And
right.
being in the driver's seat just feels so powerful because now you're not the one that's being carpooled everywhere. You're the one who's actually turning the wheel. You're the one who's filling up the gas tank. You're the one who's cleaning the car. It's all on you. And I think and you said it so brilliantly in just how you navigated even your early career by shifting that one shift is so powerful. So kudos
Thanks.
for being awesome.
Well, I think the best compliment I got on that, I mean, I wasn't like, it was a very subtle thing. I wasn't like, no one's going to notice that you're like, you yourself are like calming the shit down. You're just like, everybody calm down. But you're telling yourself like, Farnoosh, calm down, relax, like breathe in one ear, out the other. If this person's telling you, and what it really gifted me was unwavering focus. Like I just had my eye on the prize. I need to get my work done. This is my goal, my short-term goal, my short-term goals, my mid-term goals, long-term goals. Like, and there's going to be like a lot of chaos around me and like, Tasmanian devils swirling, but like just stay the course. And I remember like 4 or 5 years into this practice, I feel like I got a little bit of a Buddhist monk in me, like through the newsroom. Like I was like this source of like calm. And people loved working with me because I was just like, it's going to be okay, Yeah. And I went to this new job and I had a really crazy overnight shift. I was working from like 3 a.m. till 10 a.m. at the news desk. And it was, it was in some ways the best time to work because not a lot of news happens during those hours, but around 8, 9, things do get a little, heated, like the stock market opens, people are at work, like the world's awake. And so, well, at least the United States is awake. And there'd be some fires along the way or some breaking news and we had to scramble and write stuff and get on camera. And getting nervous and worked up does not help you in those situations. No. It's only going to stifle your ability to produce well. So I was always like, okay, got it. Work, focus, tune out, do your thing, produce. And I remember this one younger woman was like looking at me like, how come she's not peeing her pants? Like, I don't understand. There's an earthquake and a tsunami and like, this is big news. And, but I'm like, not out of disrespect for the calamity that's happening in the world, but like, I got to get my work done. And if I start to like worry about what my boss is going to think, and it's just, like just get it done, be kind. Because that was the other thing when the stakes get high and when there's a heightened level of alarm in any working condition and any working environment, it's very easy to stop being nice to people, to get rude and get short with people. And that was always like important to me. Like I want to talk with respectfully to this person and like give them the benefit of the doubt, be kind. And I think that was like a refreshing thing in the newsroom at 4:00 in the morning sometimes. And everyone's even tired too, to be there.
Yeah.
And she was like, wow, how do you like, I'm so like, how are you not, what, how are you doing this? I'm so like, she was trying to look for advice. And I was like, let me just tell you, some things just aren't worth fretting over. And you're going to get your work done, but you can still do it with strength and with grace. And, and it's not, I'm not saying it's all going to work out, but what else do we have?
Pressure either crushes rocks or makes diamonds. And I think that's a choice. You get to choose the mold you want to take that the world puts on you. And I think that's awesome. I love that. Farnoosh, you are amazing. I just want to thank you again. Thank you again for being here. Guys, go just learn from Farnoosh. Clearly, he's awesome. So
come on in. I got a lot.
Just go to Farnoosh. She's got an amazing podcast. I'm partially biased towards this one that she did with this awesome dude named Raj on So Money. So go check that out. She's got an amazing website, farnoosh.tv. She's all over social, and we'll make all these links available. But Farnoosh, I have one last question for you.
All right.
And in the midst of everything you've experienced, all the upswings, the downswings, even the progressions and sometimes detours in your career, how do you stay grounded?
My husband keeps me very grounded. He is the yin to my yang. And people have even said and noticed, like, thank God for your husband, because you would just be up in the clouds all day. And I think that he's a really true and honest and caring and loving, open person. And I think like he's the first person I want to tell anything to. So it's for me, it's wonderful to have like a safe place, right? To go and like talk about what's bothering me or my insecurities. And I know that I'm not going to be judged, and he's going to, be honest with me and not just try to make me feel better. And that knowing I have that resource is like hugely impactful. It's what keeps me grounded. And I'm very fortunate. I didn't necessarily have a prescription for like how to find the right spouse or how to find the right partner. That is one thing that I think my parents did not model for me necessarily. So I think I don't know. I mean, I'm very lucky because I know it doesn't work out for everybody. And it's one of those paths that I feel like there's no right way to find like fall in love. Great. But like, there's more to it than that. So I feel really lucky.
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel really good just after this conversation. Farnoosh, again, thank you so much for just showing up the way you did and for inspiring, illuminating paths that I personally am now anticipating and looking forward to dealing with in my life. But I know that everyone listening also is taking a lot from. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. So everybody, that is a wrap for this week's episode of Stay Grounded. I'm your host, Raj. This is your friend, Farnoosh. And from us, stay grounded. We will chat soon. Thanks for joining us today on this episode of Stay Grounded. I hope you found this interview helpful as you create your own ways to live an extraordinary life. For more resources and support, please visit www.rajjana.com/stay grounded to join the official Stay Grounded Facebook group, a place where aspiring life enthusiasts can connect and ignite passion for life together. My hope is that the positivity, content, resources, and support in this group will resonate with you on a deeper level. That what you hear in our podcast, read in our thoughtful posts, or learn in our courses will empower you to live with intention, uncover true purpose, and challenge the internal dialogues that stop you from being who you really want to be in your life. Again, thanks so much for joining us. Stay grounded.